Hey Mama, welcome back to the Thrive Mama podcast. I'm Martina, certified nutrition consultant and holistic health coach, and a mama of two, and I'm so glad you're here. I'm here to help busy moms unlock their energy, balance their hormones, and break out of burnout using nutrition as a foundation. On this podcast, we will dive into actionable strategies on nutrition, nervous system healing, and aligning with your cycles, with a healthy dose of relatable motherhood thrown in, all designed to help you move past surviving to actually thrive in motherhood. Let's do this. Hey, mama. So glad you're here. I am so excited to share this conversation with you today. I got to sit down with Lara Rogan, who is a helper, a healer, a licensed clinical social worker, and is really on a mission to help people break through their burnout using transformational life coaching, healing modalities, and deep self-work. Lara specializes in helping the helpers. So she really speaks to those of us who live a life of service and support of others and help us find ways to resource ourselves, break through our burnout, and really holistically heal the stories that are keeping us drained and disconnected. This conversation went so wide and so deep. We talked about so much when it comes to what's causing your burnout. What are the root systematic issues keeping us stuck and exhausted? And really specific, tangible daily rituals and strategies to help us heal our burnout from within. I can't wait to hear your takeaways from this episode. There's so much here. So let's go ahead and dive into it. All right, Lara, I'm so excited to be in space with you today. This is going to be such a deep and juicy conversation for people, and I'm feeling really grateful to be in space with you. We have so much to get into, and I would love to start with just kind of introducing yourself to the audience. Let them know your work in the world, who you are, and what you're excited to talk about today.
Yes, great. Thanks so much, Martina. I'm so grateful for this invitation, both to just see you again, as well as to have this conversation. So, yes, my name is Lara Rogan. I am a helper, and we'll get into a little bit more about that as we continue to chatting. But that is only one of the ways that I express myself. My trade in the world right now is I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I am also a wife and a friend and a daughter. I am an advocate and a social justice seeker and a fantasy reader and all the things. So I really just want to hone into this idea and kind of plant the seed that we are so much more than one thing. And so often when we introduce ourselves, we introduce what we do, but we're so much more than that. So I just wanted to highlight that a little bit about who I am and that I encompass a lot. I'm also a forest hiker, seeker, water sign, lover, nature person.
Mm. Yeah, thank you for presencing that because that is so true. And I see this, especially in motherhood, it becomes such a huge part of our identity and our life and our where our energy is going. And it's really powerful to remember all of the pieces of us that exist outside of one role. That's really important. And we could easily turn this into a podcast about talking about fantasy books, but we're not going to. We're going to move into, because you have a really rich experience and body of work in the burnout space and in helping helpers with burnout. And I would love to dive into that a little bit more. So could we start with this idea of burnout? Like, how do you define burnout and what has your relationship with burnout been like in the past?
Yes, absolutely. My sort of like sole purpose feels very connected to helping the helpers. And so, as I define myself as a helper, my line of work has always been in the helping profession in some fashion. However, I've also been a helper at home growing up, right? As a daughter, helping with the chores, helping my friends when they were having problems and listening. And I think that in general, many humans can define themselves in some fashion as a helper. Mothers for sure, right? You're helping your children all day, every day. And that doesn't go unnoticed. So even though most of the industry wants to talk about burnout as it relates to work, I think burnout can be felt in many different facets. And so the way that I define burnout is that it's really a betrayal of ourselves. It's a betrayal of what we are here to do. It's a betrayal of what we need and fulfilling those needs. And it's a betrayal of what we know to be true and right. And it's often laid with such great intentions. Like, I'm doing this because I really want to help somebody. I'm doing this because this person needs me more than I need me right now, or I can get to me later. It's always laid with good intentions, and nobody sets out on a path to burnout. Like, that's nobody's goal. However, over time, because of the helping nature, the empathetic space that most helpers have, it just becomes, we just put ourselves to the side over and over and over, and eventually it just becomes what we do. And it's hard to get out of that habit.
Oh, I want to say that again because that was really powerful. Burnout is a betrayal of the self. Wow. And I'm curious, when we're moving through those cycles of burnout, how do you usually see that manifest for yourself or for others? Like, what is the result of that betrayal cycle that we get in as we try to help those around us?
For sure. I would say, for myself and a lot of my clients, what they seem to notice first is lack of energy.
Mm.
So they wake up in the morning feeling just as depleted as they did the night before. That is one of the first things that I hear from people, is that I can't, no matter how much sleep I get, no matter how many rests I take, I never seem to feel rested and ready to take on the day. And the next thing I hear from people is, I don't even know what my hobbies are, Lara. What is a hobby? Or I can't remember the last time that I did something that I really truly enjoyed that was for me and not for somebody else.
Mm.
And that can even look like socializing sometimes, right? Like sometimes, we get invited to go hang out with friends, and it sounds like a really good plan. And sure, I do want to see my friends, but also I'm exhausted, and I don't really feel like I have that energy, but I don't want to say no because I don't want to lose my friends. And then here we are in a different, like, a people pleasing cycle, which is still that burnout cycle. It can also be for work. Work wants you to do more, right? If you're a mom, your kids want something more from you. Your kids need something more from you. And it can be really hard to set that boundary and hold it and say, yes, I can do this, but first, let me do this. Let me take care of.
Mm. Yeah, and you just made me think of when I work with clients one-on-one with a nutrition focus, there's a question on my intake forms that says, true or false, I do something every day that is just for me. I have parts of my day that are just for me. And it is amazing to me, um, how many people can't say that that's true. And it's not just in motherhood, but especially in this season of life, I see it so much that our days are for other people. We don't have time or space or energy that we're just spending on what we want to do. And that feels like a really common thread in those burnout cycles.
No, absolutely. And I think too, I think it's important to highlight, just to lay a nugget here, that there is a perpetuation, I would say, in society that is what we should be doing. We should be working harder and producing more. And if we're not, then somehow we're lacking in some way. And if we were to stop and do something for ourselves, then we're not meeting the needs of society, of our role, of some other person's expectation.
Yeah. Okay, so how do we balance those things together? I mean, how do we respond to the needs of others and the responsibilities of our lives and also not betray ourselves in the process?
So true. Great question. I would say that for me, one of my personal experiences with managing burnout symptoms and like finding a solution to them for myself as well as with my clients is to start small, right? To be able to recognize, okay, let me just take stock of what's happening currently, right? And where's an area that I could create just a little influx of change. And so for me, that was, I have a lot of control over what time I wake up in the morning, and I can wake up a little bit earlier if I need to. And I'm not saying like an hour, I'm saying like 15 minutes, right? And just start my day with a focus on me. And that can be so many things, but I started really small. I started with just some gratitude, right? Okay, I'm really glad I woke up this morning. This coffee tastes really good. right? Or the sun is shining, or look at the snow on the ground, or, I'm really excited for this thing I have going on today.
Yeah.
Really
Oh,
simple, you know?
really simple.
Mhm.
Yeah, we feel like there's so much that is draining us that's outside of our control often. It's the ages our kids are at, it's the job we're in, like those feel like immovable things, right?
Mhm.
And I love what you just said about like there's power in the simplicity of how many moments every day could we reclaim for ourselves. If it's 15 minutes in the morning, if it's 20 minutes on your lunch break, if it's half an hour during nap time, like these little things add up. They really do when we come at them from a place of how can I honor myself instead of you know, betraying myself and pouring into other people first and leaving myself empty. That's really powerful.
And I think that the key there, right, is to carving out the time for yourself because we can fill that time with a lot of different things, a lot of different practices that are going to help us feel more authentic and more true to ourselves, right? But if we don't have the time, then we can't intentionally fill it with something that fuels us. You know what I mean? So I think that's really the biggest thing. And, you know, I'm not suggesting that people stay there at 15 minutes, but if that's all you have, then that's fine, right? We need to start somewhere and we can grow from wherever.
Yeah.
So if that is 15 minutes in the morning, if that's 15 minutes at lunch, if that's 5 minutes, before dinner, right? Like start where you are.
Mm. Yeah. Do you have some words of wisdom for someone listening who's like, fine, Lara, I can take 10 minutes, but like, I don't know what to do for myself during that time. Like, I don't even know where to start with pouring back into myself. What would you say to them?
Well, I want to first acknowledge that that's a very real thing, right? I can definitely hear some of my clients being like, "You want me to add something more, Lara?" And that's a very real feeling. I get it. It feels overwhelming to suggest something more on our plates. And I really want to try to help people reframe that, right? This isn't something more. This is something that's already present for you. You just have to like snatch it, right? Just
Mhm.
snatch the moment in time. So if we can just find that moment in time, and I understand we're gonna talk a little bit more about how can we create that time, right? But once we have it, it can be so small. It can be three things that you're grateful for, which is what, maybe 2 minutes of your time? And that's okay, right? That's where we're starting. That's where we're starting. It can be sitting down and just doing what I call box breathing, which is a like a nervous system hack, if you will. It's a way to just kind of settle our nervous system to bring our breath in and slow our heart rate down, right? Just get us to a more calm space where we are more apt to be able to sit comfortably and listen to what bubbles up or to notice what is happening around us and to be comfortable in that silence. And
Mhm.
if that's all we do, I'm telling you, that is huge.
Yeah, it is. And I find with the people I work with who would identify as helpers, they often are so focused outward that they don't know what to do with that time because we're not stopping to listen. Like we don't know how to listen inside. And it can be really uncomfortable at first, but is really powerful what you just shared about the box breathing, creating space to listen. Like your body will tell you what it wants to do, right? Like your soul will tell you what it needs. But if all we're doing is moving from to-do list to to-do list or people's needs in reactive mode, we can't hear it. We can't listen to that voice. So, what would you say to the helpers out there who, like you, are helping from a really mission-driven place? Like, we're not helping because we feel like we have to. We're helping because we really care about the world. We care about our family. Like, this comes from our love and may still be contributing to burnout. How do we hold both of those?
Yeah, for sure. So I again want to just sort of presence and a remembrance of, you know, we are the main character of our lives. So everything that happens in our lives, we have a hand in it and we are going to experience every single consequence of the positive consequences as well as the negative consequences, right? So presencing that, right? And that recognition of I am the main character. So the main character has to do all the things, but also has an opportunity to choose what all the things are, what they look like, and how much time they get. And so if we feel really passionate about something and it is the reason that we are doing the thing, we have to fuel that passion, which means we have to fuel our bodies, our souls, our minds, all of it. It can't just be that I do this because I have this passion, because the passion will flame out if you don't sort of like fan it and nourish it and give it what it needs. And that passion isn't one thing. Your love doesn't come just from your family. Your love doesn't come just for the passion that you have for doing the thing. Your love is fueled by all the things that you show yourself love for, right?
Mm.
And that's not always glamorous, you know. People don't necessarily talk openly about when they go to get a mammogram, right? That is super self-care and that is super nourishing, right? People don't always talk about how they're having a health problem and how they sought out multiple doctors to get to the bottom of it, but that's super important and big in healthcare, in self-care, I mean. People also don't really talk about how they went to bed super early and laid out their clothes the night before and packed their lunch, all in preparation for the next day so that they could really start feeling like they had some control and they were on a good foot, right? Those are all pieces of self-care that are not glamorous, that the media doesn't talk about, right? It's not a spa day, you know, you're not getting a mani-pedi with your girlfriends, but man, does it not change the course of your day?
Yeah, not always glamorous, but like having the grounding in our worth that we deserve the mammogram. Like we deserve the pre-prepared food because we know we won't have time to do it in the moment. And those things often feel like they can be deprioritized because they only impact us, right? They're not impacting other people. But what I hear you saying is if our flame isn't fed and nourished, it's going to go out. And then nobody gets to benefit from our love and our passion and our medicine in the world.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I love the way you introduced yourself with all of the facets of your identity. And I've heard you talk before about how we really identify with our helper, persona, and as like a teacher, as a mom, as whoever we are. And that's not actually who we are deep in our core. Can you talk a little bit more about like the difference between like let's take motherhood as an example, me as a mom versus me as a person? How do we weave those apart?
Yeah. So I think that our identities are made up of all of our roles. Yes. And it's also made up of all the things that we love, all the things that we do, the way that we spend our time, what fills our brain, how we fill our brain, the time we spend on things. So, you know, we're never just one thing. We're multifaceted and we're complicated, very much like everything in the earth, you know. The trees are not just the leaves, right? They are the bark and the roots and the ground and the oxygen that they give off and everything else. And if the trees never nourished themselves and didn't take from the ground, they would not be big and strong and tall and providing for us as they do, right? So remembering this idea again, right, that yes, our role and maybe the part of ourselves that maybe we feel the most grounded in and the most confident in is being a helper, right? And also, how can we take that same love and care and passion and kind of turn it back on ourselves and put the spotlight back on ourselves? Not all day, every day, but enough, right? That we can then continue to show up with the brightest light that we can, with the passion that we have, and really feel like we're putting out the best work because that's what is going to fuel our passion as well. When we feel like we're showing up and doing the best thing, it's going to help us sleep better at night. It's going to help us feel more calm throughout the day. It's going to help us interact and be in relation with others in a more calm and meaningful way because we're not going to be burnout and snarky and hangry.
Hmm. Yeah. So then how do we respond lovingly when the voice of, well, this is selfish comes
Mm. I would respond absolutely with a lot of love and care, right? That like this has felt selfish because it's new and it's different.
up?
But I know that the best version of myself is waiting just beyond this thing that I'm going to do for myself. And
The best
so
version.
really kind of grounding into that recognition of selfish isn't a bad word,
Mm.
right? If you need to call yourself selfish for doing this, then you also need to give yourself grace that selfish isn't a bad thing.
Mm. Focused on the self doesn't have to be a bad thing. Yeah.
Correct. I
Yeah.
think that, selfish has a lot of different connotations, and we want to focus on the only one,
Mm.
which happens to be negative in a lot of people's mind. But it's not. Self first. I mean, when we look at it from a survival lens, we would say that that's not a bad thing. And aren't we surviving at a minimum?
Yeah. So apart from survival, what are the positive ways to look at being selfish? How is that a positive thing?
Selfish for me is a recognition that I matter, that my feelings, my needs, my my care is important. And that is not a bad thing, right? It becomes a bad thing when you are only focused on yourself, when everything that you do is all about self and personal gain, and you lose sight of the community, you lose sight of your family, you lose sight of your friends, and you become egotistical, maniacal, kind of crazy person. And that's not nobody wants. And I think that for most people, it would be hard to actually even get into that space, especially coming from a helper space.
Right.
So giving ourselves a little bit of grace that it isn't selfish to take time for ourselves because we give a lot of time to other people, and there's plenty of time in the day to also give it to ourselves.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay, let's expand on time a little bit because this is a big one where maybe we're really bought in with this idea of I matter too, small things add up, like this all sounds great. And like I feel like I don't have the resources. I feel like I don't have the time or the energy. We talked about beautiful examples of starting small. How else can we start to reclaim some time or view time differently to prevent the burnout?
Great question. And this one requires bringing in some help. So this also requires some conversations, in my opinion, and in my experience, right? So even if we lived alone, we would still have to bring in help, right? But most of us, especially who are listening to your podcast, and most of my clients don't live alone. They have children, they have a partner, they have friends, they have family. There are people in their world, right? And I would say that we need to start by having a conversation, but first with ourselves about what am I doing? What are all the things, right, that I am doing? And what are the things that maybe I could get some help doing, right? Could somebody you know, watch my children for 5 minutes while I go and take some deep breaths outside, right? Could somebody help me with dinners or with packing lunches? Or could I ask my employer if my break could be at a different time so that I could do something different in that space, right? That I'm looking forward to, that I have a plan around, right? Could I speak to my partner about waking up a little bit earlier to make sure that I have that 10 minutes in the morning to do a meditation or a journal exercise or to share my gratitude, right? So I think that a conversation with somebody in our world that can be helpful, right? That can help us carve out that time is so important, and being clear on what we're asking them to help with. So instead of just saying, "Mom, can't you help me?" or like, my partner, can't you just like help me do this? I'm not being clear on what it is that we need can also be really hard for them because they want to help us. They love us, right? And they're excited that maybe we ask for help. But if we're not clear with what it is that we want them to do, then they can also really not understand what it is that we need. And then we get frustrated and in a cycle of, well, I asked for help and nobody helped me. So getting clear first on what it is that we need help with. So I need to help finding time. Okay. What in my day can I delegate out to create that time? Right. Maybe what I need help with is I'm having a really big problem and I don't know how to fix it. So I need to ask for some help to like talk it through. Okay. Can you hop on a call for me, friend, for 30 minutes to talk through this problem? Cool. Right. So just trying to get really clear to the root of what it is that we need help with. And I would say in my experience with my clients as helpers, time is a big one.
Mhm.
Um, because many helpers don't just have one caregiving responsibility, there's usually many. in some fashion. And so, where can we delegate some of our lives to help create and carve out time? And then the other piece is that yeah, there might be, carving out times for intentional spaces that are small and like throughout the day, but there also might be a structure to your day that can be manipulated or changed to create space, right? Maybe you found yourself, and this is true of a lot myself, as well as some of my helpers back. So for me, it was before I'd really kind of set some of these structures in place for me. And I was running on empty all day long, and I was crashing at home and then binge watching TV because finally I get to have some adult time all to myself. And so I'm going to stay up super late. I'm going to just binge watch a TV show on Netflix or something, right? Or I'm going to doom scroll on my phone because I don't have a plan. I haven't intentionally set any structures for what that time should look like. And now I'm not filling it with anything that's really nourishing me. And I'm also cutting into my sleep time. So that's like a multifaceted problem with a really kind of quick, easy fix is kind of setting a structure down for how do you shut down your day? What does that look like? How do you create space to make sure that you're getting the amount of sleep that you need, which for most humans, adults specifically, is 7 to 9 hours. So sometimes self-care, like I said, isn't glamorous. Sometimes it is heading upstairs early, right? Maybe you want to be in bed by 9:30, so maybe you head upstairs at like 8:30 and you wash your face and you brush your teeth and you pick out your clothes and you set some structures in place that use your time effectively to help future Lara or future Martina to be more successful and feel more grounded.
Yeah. And I love this idea of structures because decision fatigue is real. And often what I see and have experienced is by the time we got the kids to sleep, it's 7:45. I actually have time right now, but I'm so drained from my day that I can't make a single more decision. I can't think about what would be good for me right now, right? Like we're empty. We have nothing left. And if the structures are in place, it allows us to bridge that gap into restorative action without having to add another layer of decision making and processing onto that, which I think is really important because there is a big difference between uh, numbing out and like recharging. And sometimes we view our numbing out time as our self-care time, but it's actually just disconnect. It's not actual recharge. So then we numb out for 2 hours, go to sleep, and then we wake up still on empty because we haven't done anything to recharge ourselves quite yet. And I've also heard it said, and I love this quote, I bring it up often, that if you really want to see what someone values, you look at their bank account and you look at their calendar. Because what we spend our time and our money on is actually an embodiment of our values. And I find that idea really powerful. And I bring it up here because I think we don't all have the same 24 hours in a day. We have different levels of support, we have different levels of demands, and I haven't met a single person who doesn't have any flex time. It's just that we're using it for different things. We're using it on things that are not actually recharging us. So it may not even be a matter of more. It may not be a matter of more time. It may just be shifting so that your time actually aligns with your values and with your needs. And if you say that you value your health and your happiness, then your time gets to reflect that. And that's a really empowering place to be in.
I love that. That's a really great quote. I'm gonna have to remember that one.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good one. So I would love to bring the conversation to something I love talking about, and I think all moms need to explore more, which is boundaries. Why don't you take it wherever you want to go? What would you like to say to the helper about boundaries?
Okay. I'm gonna look at my notes really fast here because I had some really great ideas and I want to make sure I encapsulate all of them. Okay. So for me, Martina, boundaries are the space that is needed for me to show up as my authentic self and still be in relation with you. in this particular sense. It can also be in my relationship with my partner, in relation with my kids, which I don't have children, but if you're a mom, right, with your kids, if you're a helper in your work profession, how I can show up in relation with people that I work with, my clients, and still be 100% Lara Rogan and still feel like I'm giving my best area of help, my best skill set, if you will, right? And so boundaries help me do that. It helps me maintain the level of safety that I need in my nervous system and my body to be able to show up and be a 100% right person that I need to be in those moments, which sometimes as an adult means that we have to have tough conversations, which can be really emotionally draining. And if I'm not taking care of my cup and showing up to that conversation, that difficult conversation, whatever it might be, and with whoever it might be with, I am doing a disservice to myself and that other person, because chances are that conversation, which is already difficult, will not go as well if I'm not showing up in my authenticity with my full self. And the other person will feel it. And the chances of it going negatively and ending in an argument or something really uncomfortable are much higher, as opposed to when I generally take care of myself and I come feeling like I have a full cup to every scenario. Chances are much more likely that that scenario is going to end up in a better favor. Maybe not always in my favor, because life is life and what will be, but we have much more control over scenarios, how we feel in them, and the circumstances that transpire after them when we come with a full cup and a full readiness and availability to all of our skills. And so that's what boundaries do. Boundaries says, this is what I need in order to be my best self. And if you are unable to accept that, or if you cross this line, then this is what I'm going to do to maintain the level of safety that I need to be in relation with you, right? So that could look like I'm going to pull back. I'm not going to spend as much time with you. That could be you've crossed a line. I'm going to let you know we're going to have a conversation about it. That could be I am no longer comfortable with the scenario. I am leaving it entirely, right? And the boundary is yes about what we say, what we need, but it is more about what we do when it's done and it's crossed.
Yeah. One thing I see often with boundaries that can go wrong is boundaries actually are only about us, right? Like boundaries are not about controlling anyone else's actions or behavior. They're just about what we will or will not allow into our space. And that's where I think sometimes boundaries can feel really tricky, because my boundary is around something someone else is doing. And that means it is up to me to know if that boundary is crossed, my action is this. It doesn't require the other person to do anything because we can only control ourselves. So boundaries really are clear around what am I allowing in my precious space, in my energy, in my life, and um, and how I think your point about follow through. What is my response if that boundary is not respected? And the other thing I want to bring into this boundary conversation is that sometimes I think boundaries around burnout also are boundaries with ourselves. And sometimes it's not actually about other people, it's about like just the general world or our personal routines and rituals. And, I have boundaries around my phone use, around how often I check social media, around how often when and where I consume news. I have boundaries around food that feels good in my body. And these are boundaries around like me and future me to really resource myself, not from a place of like restriction or control, but from a place of what I know I I need and want to feel my best, to feel alive and to feel really resourced in myself. So if you're feeling like you don't know where you need boundaries in your life, I always encourage people to look at where you feel resentful, because I think resentment is a really big red flag. If you feel resentful with your partner, with your in-laws, with whoever, look at what boundaries you need. And then if you don't know where to start with yourself. What are the things you know are draining your energy? And what boundaries can you put in place so it's not more decisions to make? It's just a boundary that you know you hold. You don't check your phone for the first hour of the day, or You only consume news from these three sources that resource you, whatever it is that feels supportive for you.
For sure. And that could also even be, right, like I'm gonna sign up for this yoga class on Wednesdays, which means on Wednesdays I'm not gonna cook dinner. So, right, like how do I make that plan? Is it something that I cook before Wednesday? Is it something my partner can handle? Is it something that we're gonna get takeout? Are we gonna get something prepared? I'm gonna go to grandma's house or mom's house, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about how self-worth comes into all of this? Because I do see a pattern of sourcing our worth from what we do or what our house looks and feels like, or how we show up as a mom and the productivity in our days. And that can feel really challenging to set boundaries around our energy when we also feel like we need those things to be worthy. So, what would you say around that, the holding of both of those things?
Yeah. So I see that again as a bit of sort of like conditioning of the societal norms and roles that people, and I say people because I don't have any one person to put this on, but people have decided over time, right? For example, for a long time, it was seen that women should be in the home and caring for the children and caring for the home. That was all that they should do, right? And over time, that's waxed and waned because before that, centuries before that, women were the high priestesses and they were the wise women of the tribes and they were sought after for knowledge and wisdom and problem solving and like the epitome of a helper, right? But in a very different lens. And adults came to them, men came to them, high paying situations that they were sought after for, right? So I don't want anybody to believe that just because society says that this is your role and this is what you need to do and this is how it looks like doesn't never means that that's what it has to be, right? We all have freedom of will. And even though there are times when it can feel like our freedoms are being taken away for some external reason, if we come back into ourselves and find our resource back and remember back to who we are as people and where we have our most availability for impact, it is really quite large. Now, yes, that may not mean that you can change the entire world, but you might be able to change yours. You might be able to reach one person today in a really big way. And maybe that one person is you. And that idea that we can be fluid and flowy and change and be different and learn and grow, we never have to stay wherever we are. We can always move. And when I say move, I don't mean like from the house, from the state. I really just mean move from our state of being. If we've decided, you know what, I'm not about this burnout life. You know what? I'm not about putting myself last anymore. That's great. You can make that change whenever you want, right?
Yeah.
Those choices are yours and they are valuable and they matter. And so when it comes to self-worth, it is absolutely a very real thing. And in the beginning, it may feel like you're just going through the motions, but change always starts small.
Mhm.
So even if you can't necessarily feel the shifts in self-worth, deciding to make a change is deciding you have self-worth.
Yeah. One of my mentors says any healing journey starts with a declaration. And as soon as you declare, it's going to be this way. I'm going to heal my burnout. I know I'm worthy. Whatever your healing journey is, everything else that comes up is there to heal you. It's an opportunity to heal you because once you declare it, everything after that is a lesson, is a support, is listen for that journey. So I love that you brought that up of deciding. That's the first step. We just decide and then let the journey teach us what that looks like. It's
Oh, I
beautiful.
love that. Yeah.
I would love to talk about something that was really instrumental in healing my self-worth journey and my burnout journey, which was my spiritual practice. And I know you're a deeply spiritual person. For those who don't know, Lara and I first connected in our ritual facilitator certification, and we got to sit in deep sacred space together, which was really beautiful. And I would love to hear how that has impacted your burnout journey, how you're able to use that with clients, just what you see in connection with the greater universe or daily spiritual practices and how that relates to burnout.
Yeah. So my spiritual practice has absolutely been the cornerstone of healing myself. And that's not to say that I haven't done other things as well. I definitely sought out therapy of my own, and I definitely have been working on my nutrition. However, what created the space for me to solidify those pathways and those new habits was ritual, right? And I know that sometimes people hear the word ritual and they get a little bit freaked out. It's really just something that you do regularly and that has a certain structure to it that is helpful. So ritual for me is sometimes a meditation and just some breathing. Sometimes it's a visualization. Sometimes it has candles. Um, Sometimes I'm journaling, sometimes I pull tarot cards. It is so multifaceted. And at the heart of it, it really is what we've been talking about here, which is finding some space and some time to just tune into you.
Mm.
And it can be outdoors and hiking, it can be indoors and yoga, it can be indoors and journaling, it can be outdoors and journaling. I think one of the things that I love the most about it is that there's not any one time that is right or perfect to do it. There's nobody else needed to do it. There's no right or wrong way to do it either, right? It's about tuning in to your own voice, tuning into the greater good and the higher power, and being able to trust that has been a journey in and of itself. I'm still on it. And I think really what it is trusting myself. And probably for me and my journey and a lot of my clients' journey, that has been the biggest aha, right? Outsourcing trust can be really difficult because then we lose sight of trusting ourselves and the fact that we have the power, that we have the answer, that we have the ability.
And I think, yeah, trusting yourself is so big. And the other piece that I find really transformative in burnout, especially, is having a practice, connecting in with whatever spirituality looks like for you, actually lets you move energy without your mind having to understand what's going on. And I dealt with chronic anxiety and overwhelm for 10 years before even becoming a mom. And it was always in the mind. It was always trying to solve the problem with my mind. I know I don't like how I'm feeling. So, what can I learn? What can I understand? What can I process? And there's a place for that. But really finding practices where I could sit and just move energy without my mind even understanding why. I still do this to this day. I don't need to understand why I'm stressed today. I can just sit with it and let it process through my body. When we let an emotion live, it lives in our body for about 90 seconds, and then the cycle's complete. It's when we try to control and grip the emotion, when we try to push it down and ignore it, that it festers and it gets stuck. And so, having a spiritual practice where you're connected with just energy, nature, meditation, whatever that looks like for you, even movement, exercise that is deeply connective, allows us to move energy in a way that completely the mind can't even, I think, really grasp and is really powerful for our lives.
Very true. Very
Mhm.
true. And I will say that that's been a practice that I've used also in those moments of holding boundaries, right? So I've held boundaries with my partner that I've set that are newer, right? So when they're newer, it requires that we hold them a little bit stronger, and also it feels really scary to do that. And I have set a boundary sometimes and then left the room and done like a little dance party to just move my body to get that energy through. And it is funny that you should say that it's 90 seconds because man, that does it feel like a really long 90 seconds, but that really is all it is. If you can move your body, if you can have a song in your head or even play one and dance a little bit of it out, you will be better, I promise. And you know, it's real.
Mhm.
And when you're able to just practice being alone and being in those spaces, those little like 30-second, 90-second spaces that you need later on just become really more easy to access.
Yeah. Beautiful. Okay, so I heard you talking about just ritual space to connect with yourself. And now we've talked about movement and just moving energy. Are there any other spiritual practices that you find are really valuable for people to explore if they're working through burnout? Hey there, Mama. Quick question. Are you feeling drained, overwhelmed, or just ready for more actionable strategies for nourishing yourself in motherhood? Well, I've got a special gift for you. I am opening the waitlist for my Thrive Mama group coaching program. And when you join the priority waitlist, I am gifting you 5 free lessons straight from inside the program itself, delivered right to your inbox. So these 5 lessons are packed with simple, actionable strategies to help you transform the way that you think about energy and stress and focus on the highest impact areas to start unlocking more energy, balancing your blood sugar, balancing your hormones, and healing your nervous system. And there are free lessons in here on exactly how energy and stress are connected, how food plays a role into all of this, how to know if you're actually eating enough food, which, hint, hint, you're probably not, and how to snack in a way that actually supports your energy instead of draining you more. And the best part is you will also get early access to Thrive Mama when the doors open, and there'll be a special waitlist discount for you. Plus, you get a sneak peek into the transformation and the resources that would be waiting for you inside of Thrive Mama. So, what are you waiting for? Click the link below the show notes, join the priority waitlist, and start your thriving era today.
So I would say that those are really the biggest ones. Creating space and time to tune in, and then how you feel that space can be where it varies, right? So I would say that like it's almost like a concept map where the big one in the middle is just time to be by yourself. And then you can fill it with yoga, you can fill it with a hike, you can fill it with journaling, you can fill it with mindfulness, you can fill it with tarot cards. Um, you can fill it with dancing, right? You can fill it with a lot of different things. Um, but for me, the spiritual practice that I think has been the biggest aha is carving that time out, tuning in, and journaling, which I was not a journaler before, and I was a little resistant to journaling, even though I tell my clients to do it all the time, because it's been proven and shown to work. Just for me, writing was always hard, and so journaling felt like writing. But I can tell you now, as a reformed journaler, journaling isn't writing, because the way that I journal, it's really just stream of consciousness. So I'm not even like thinking about what I'm saying. I don't care about punctuation. And this isn't for English class, right? So nobody's getting graded. But this idea where, I take it out of my brain because my brain is always working. And much like you, Martina, I had an overthinking phase. I'm probably still in it on some level. But, the brain doesn't stop. So when we can start taking the thoughts out of the brain and putting them on paper, they no longer take up that space. And almost like the movement of energy that you were talking about, it's very similar to that in my experience, right? So I can often drop in with a few deep breaths. I can kind of just tune in to what my body is telling me. And then I can write down all the things that came up in my brain and in my body. And then it's no longer stored. I no longer have to hold on to it. And then it just becomes clear.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't come clear on the first try, I just keep doing it. And
Yeah.
eventually clarity comes.
And it is really powerful what can come out of you that you didn't even know you were dealing with. And I'll do this practice regularly, sometimes just about, I'm feeling really uninspired right now. Like, what's going on? And so I'll start with, why am I feeling uninspired right now? Well, I think, and I just automatic write for 20 minutes. Sometimes I'll do it around, my relationship with my kids doesn't feel great. I'm feeling really stuck in my body. My anxiety's high for no clear reason. And just if you have something that seems like your mind is circling around it, like, what do I do about this? How do I solve this problem? Just creating space to process it out of your body is really powerful. And then it's very therapeutic for me to burn it after I get it all out on paper for 20 minutes. You just burn that shit right out. But even just a daily practice of a few minutes at the end of the day of processing When I think about that question on my intake form, if I have something every day that's just for me, this is a really good place to start, honestly. If you don't know what to do just for yourself, think about a moment of ritual in your day. Can you process? Can you journal? Can you get out in nature? Can you light a candle and listen to your favorite song for 5 minutes? Can you create some of these practices that allow you to tune in with either yourself or with a higher power, whatever is resonating with you right now in your life? It really is transformational what can come up and out of you because we know, right? Like we know what we need. It's just so hard to hear and understand sometimes.
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
Lara, we have gone through a lot, and I feel like there's a lot of strategies and, different ways of thinking about burnout that's going to be so valuable already for folks. But I would love to hear your take on kind of cycles and seasons when it comes to burnout, because I think often burnout can manifest because of all these systemic patterns we're talking about, but in a specific season of life that sometimes feels more contained, like winter or this particular season of work, or my kids are this age and we're not sleeping, something that feels temporary, but is manifesting in a really intense way and causing us to lose that connection to ourselves. We're betraying ourselves, but it also feels temporary. Do you have anything to say around like how can we move through temporary seasons and still stay resourced through them?
Yes, that is a very real thing. And in fact, there is a diagnosis for that in mental health. It's called adjustment disorder. And so we are constantly, as humans, adjusting to life circumstances. We are adjusting to things that are happening at home. We are adjusting to things that happen in society. We are adjusting to things that happen on our work schedule. For caregivers, we're adjusting to what's happening to the people that we're caring for, right? Whether it be our clients or our kids or whoever, there are things that are changing regularly. So, number one, presencing that that is normal. It is normal to have adjustment periods. It is normal for different things, changes to occur, and for us to feel off kilter. That is normal. It is a normal experience to feel a little bit like our balance is a little bit uneven, and it takes a little bit of time to normalize and get back on track, but it is possible, right? So, number one, giving yourself the grace to readjust. And I would say that the next thing to recognize is that there are natural cycles in our lives, in our bodies, in our days that are really just about rest and sort of like reward. You know what I mean? Where it is not about creating something new. It is not about, putting something different out into the world. It might just be, basking in the sunlight of our success. And that is okay. It also might mean that sometimes, we what our bodies and our lives need is just a little bit more rest. So maybe we aren't doing, the extra PTA thing, or we're not, hanging out with our friends tonight, but we've chosen to come home and go to bed early because right now that is what I need. It won't be forever, but it is for right now. And just sort of normalizing that those seasons come and they will not last forever. And the unbalanced feeling also will not last forever. Kind of like those emotions that you were talking about that last 90 seconds and sensations in the bodies. These cycles don't last forever and they're normal and they're natural. I listened to a podcast, I forget where it was now, but they were talking about um, just the hormone cycle, whereas men have a 24-hour hormone cycle and women, we have like a 28-day hormone cycle. And naturally, men, right, their hormone cycle, their rest period is usually at the end of the day and throughout the night, and they wake up the next morning and it's good to go. Women, our hormone cycle is like a week at a time. And so it's our third week where we really kind of maybe need to tune in a little bit more inward and have a slower pace and maybe just handle ourselves a little bit more gracefully and kindly, as opposed to men. And I would say our capitalistic productivity systems want us to be on that 24-hour cycle, and that's just not real.
Yeah.
And it's okay to be different, and it's okay to honor that. And how you want to move through those cycles, I think that for me, I started to recognize that I wasn't honoring that sort of like reaping of rewards cycle in my life. And I wasn't recognizing the successes that I was always looking for the next rung, the next thing to do, and never sitting with the, I just did that. Like, that was pretty cool. That was like successful, whatever. Like, I do it a lot with my clients, but it's easy to forget to do it with me, with
Mhm.
myself. So, one of the ways that I personally like to recognize and honor some of those different energy levels and those different cycles is to recognize the successes that I am still having. And they are different than I was having the week before or the year before or 5 years before, but they are still present, right? So whatever's happening in my life, sometimes the success is I'm managing this and every day it feels a little bit easier. And that's success. You know, it's not what I anticipated, or it's not what I had planned, or this is way different than it was, and I'm struggling, but I'm still figuring it out, still showing up. I'm still having successes. I'm trying my best, right? And those are great.
Yeah. So good. I've heard people talk about making a daily to done list instead of a to do list at the end of the day, like
Mhm.
recognizing everything you did and really celebrating, taking space to celebrate that. And I really hear you speaking to in these seasons and cycles, like not making it a problem to solve and just really allowing things to adjust. Like your nourishment practices, your burnout prevention practices may change, but knowing that everything is shifting and temporary and things get to change with you is really important to remember. Beautiful. Anything else on your mind, Lara? Things you wish I'd asked you that you want to share with people?
I think, I don't know if this has been clear, so let me just make it abundantly clear. Nobody's broken. We're not necessarily repairing, right? We're just coming back to flow. And that has been a really big aha moment for me. In my spiritual practice, we talk a lot about nature and the different pieces of nature, right? So wind, fire, water, earth. And while we may feel connected and most attuned to one piece of that, we need it all, right? So our fire is our passion, our zest for life. It's even bigger than what gets us up in the morning. It's just that joy and that ecstasy that we feel of being here and alive, right? And we fuel that fire within us by representing our emotions and feeling them and expressing them and having them, right? And that's very like watery and flowy and, taking things as they come whenever possible. But there's also air and there's also ground, right? So that's also like being grounded feels really strong and tree-like, and air feels very like fun and flowy and um, maybe a little bit like kitty and giggly and playful, And so really just honoring when we can honor all of ourselves, and nature shows us beautifully how nature does it. When we can take some of our cues from that and really just honoring everything that makes us who we are, then we're succeeding.
Yeah. And we're not broken. We're just reclaiming, remembering.
Exactly.
Beautiful. Well, Laura, tell us a little bit about what you're working on these days. How can people connect with you, work more with you? Where can we find you in the world?
Yes. So I'm coming out on my own now as a life coach and a clinical social worker. So depending on what people's needs are, we will have a conversation about where we move forward. But the best way to reach me right now, you can reach me on my email at lara.rogan@hotmail.com. And I'm on Instagram at sobigreeny, and on Facebook as Lara Rogan. So I currently am offering some one-on-one sessions for people, and I also have a class that is about healing your burnout. It's called Rogan's Remedy: Burn Bright, Not Out. So I'd love to see you there.
Burn bright, not out. I love that. So we'll include links to all the things in the show notes so you can go explore Lara's work and connect with her more. Lara, this conversation has been so life-giving and expansive, and I think there's so many nuggets in here for folks to run with and explore for themselves. And I just really appreciate your energy and your love and your work that you're doing in the world. It's so powerful.
Well, thank you so much, Martina. This was so much fun, and thank you all for listening and tuning in.
Beautiful. Well, until we connect next, everyone take beautiful care of yourself.